What is a quadrupoint? Well, a quadrupoint is a place where 4 countries, states, counties, cities meet in a single point. And the United States has a very famous quadrupoint. I'm sure you already know what I'm talking about. But did you know that there is one deci-point in the world, a place where 10 municipalities meet in a single point? And if you want to know where it's at, stick around. Greetings, session heads, and welcome to another episode of Colorado Sessions. Today we're going to be headed down to the Four Corners. Now, I know you know this already, but the Four Corners is where 4 United States, Colorado, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico all meet in a single point. And the area around that point is called the Four Corners. And in the Colorado quadrant of that area lies the town of Cortez, which is not only a good jumping off place for exploring the Four Corners themselves, but also for visiting one of our incredible national parks, Mesa Verde. And even though it's in the farthest flung southwest corner of the state, Cortez is a Colorado town, and so it has a great brewery, WildEdge Brewing Collective, where I was lucky enough to get to perform recently. The owner and brewer, Tucker, was unfortunately on vacation while I was performing there, so I didn't get to chat with him about the brewery, but there was a really nice guy named Chris manning the bar who also runs a coffee shop out of the same location in the mornings called Mesa Cafe. So I was able to talk with him a little bit about the place. Now, you can get to the Four Corners from lots of different areas. I was coming from Colorado, obviously, more specifically Telluride, where I'd had an earlier gig. Let me tell you, that drive from Telluride to Cortez is gorgeous. You go past Wilson Peak, and then you drop down by the Dolores River. You go through the little towns of Rico and Dolores before getting to Cortez. It is a beautiful scenic drive through the majestic San Juan Mountains. Once you get past Dolores, it changes kind of quickly to be more of like a high desert. It's still really beautiful, but just in a different way. There's rugged bluffs and these wild geologic formations. You really feel like you're leaving the Rocky Mountains and entering the Southwest. In fact, Chris told me that he thought the name of the brewery, WildEdge, was because it's on the wild edge of the Colorado Mountains. So my wife and I went there for my show, and while we were there, we visited Mesa Verde. And man, did I underestimate that park. I've seen pictures, so I thought, okay, we're gonna pull the car over and we'll see some old buildings. Oh my gosh. The scope, breadth, and complexity of the society of people that lived there between like 500 AD and 1300 AD was mind-boggling. They built these dwellings into the cliffs, obviously, usually using an overhang to take advantage of the shade. But although they call them houses and palaces, they look like cities to me. There's many, many buildings in them, multi-story buildings. There's towers. There's big public open spaces inside of these cliff dwellings. And the park is huge. There's not just 1 or 2 of them. There's many, many of them. From the visitor center at the gate to the Cliff Palace, which is one of the ones that you quite often see in pictures, it's like almost an hour drive inside the park on a big mountainous road to get there. It's a massive park. And they've got all sorts of archaeological digs and things to see. My wife and I like to hike. We did a lot of hiking. We did about 7 miles of hiking on incredible trails against these cliff walls through these valleys. We stumbled upon some cliff-dwelling ruins that were just to the side, tucked away in one of these cliffs. We hiked out to where some petroglyphs had been carved into a cliff face, like, I don't know, maybe 1,000 years ago. We also got some unique vantages and views of the cliff dwellings. So if you like to hike, it's a definite must. There's very, very good trails there. So loved Mesa Verde. You got to put it on your bucket list. The brewery. Okay, so I asked Chris, why is it called the Brewing Collective? And he said he thought that when it started, there were several brewers that all brewed together collectively. Tucker is now the brewer, but he's kept the name in homage to its beginnings. The place itself, they've got outdoor seating right on the shady side of the building. And that's really important because Cortez gets a little bit warm in the summer. But once the sun goes down and that breeze comes out, there are a few lovelier places to sit and enjoy a pint than outside of WildEdge Brewing Collective. It is heaven. The other thing that we were really surprised about was the food. My wife and I went there for dinner before my show just out of convenience, and we were blown away at how good the food was. We loved our meals, so we went back the next day for breakfast. I got a big old plate of biscuits and gravy to fuel up for hiking, and once again, we were raving about the food. It is top-notch food there at WildEdge and at the Mesa Cafe. So the show was terrific. I really, really enjoyed it. What stood out most to me was the kindness of the people that were there, how supportive everyone was. So many people came up and talked to me and offered me kind words and made me feel appreciated and welcome. There was a guy who came up and chatted with me and told me all about what was going on there and really was so appreciative. And the next day when I go back for breakfast, there he is, sitting having his coffee, reading his paper. So I talked to him again and he said, well, yeah, I'm here all the time. This is a focal point of our community. It's our gathering place. It's where we come. And I love it when a brewery serves that purpose to its immediate neighborhood and to its local community. And then the next day, we're at a Mexican restaurant having dinner at a little patio, and a lovely young lady comes up to our table and says, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was at your show last night. And then once again, offered such kind words of encouragement, made me feel really appreciated. Great ambassadors for their community. Everyone I met there gave me the impression that Cortez is a wonderful community of people. The beers. Rock solid. Of course, it's a Colorado town. We have good beer in Colorado. That's just the way it is. My favorite was this Child's Play IPA. It's what I brought back to share with my friends. So I think it's named Child's Play because it is lower in alcohol, around 5%. It's not low enough to be called a session, but it's in that ballpark. So it's a really good beer to enjoy after a tough day of hiking. Oh, side note, the Mesa Cafe. Chris also told me that their coffee is from Switchback Coffee Roasters in Colorado Springs, which is a coffee shop that I bike to on a weekly basis. It's one of my haunts. So hats off to Switchback Coffee Roasters. I went all the way to Four Corners for a local cup of coffee. So, that's kind of it. You've got to go to Mesa Verde. You put it on your bucket list. You've got to go see Mesa Verde. And while you're there, you're probably going to use Cortez as your base camp. And while you're in Cortez, go get breakfast before you go explore the park at Mesa Cafe. Then after you're done, come back to the same location to WildEdge Brewing Collective for some great beer, great people, fantastic food, and maybe live music. Yay! I'm always a big fan of that. So, thanks again for hanging out with me, guys. If you want to come along on this journey of exploring Colorado craft beer through the eyes of a musician, you can find Colorado Sessions on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. And otherwise, I hope to see you out there on the road or here virtually. And until then, here's to Colorado. Drink it all in.